Lots going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV, seeing what's happening in the world, including things that have taken place in terms of the tariffs and all along those lines. So definitely, there's a lot taking place in the world as apparently Trump has escalated the trade war with Canada following the Palestinian stance that Carney took. So Trump has threatened Carney on trade deal after Carney moves to recognize Palestine. So that is definitely something that is being talked about in the world and all along those lines. Russia strike on Kyiv kills seven, including a 6-year-old boy. The Ukrainian president has says so. The definitely that is still going on as Russians missiles and drone attack pummels Kiev and kills at least seven. And Zelensky did say that there was a 6-year-old confirmed among those that had died in that attack. And Myanmar lifts a state of emergency, paving the way for a disputed vote. So Myanmar forms interim government before election, but top general still in charge. Myanmar junta in state of emergency as it prepares for the elections. So Myanmar ends that state of emergency before the planned elections. And Thailand and Cambodia have stepped back from the war, but their tempo fight remains. So Trump's call broke deadlock in the Thailand Cambodia border crisis, and definitely that is something that folks are talking about as well. And dozens are killed seeking food in Gaza, hospital says, as Witkoff arrives in Israel. So more than 100 killed in Gaza as Trump says Hamas surrender is fastest way to end humanitarian crisis. So that is definitely something that folks are talking about as well. And Zelensky signs a law restoring power to anti-corruption bodies. Ukraine adopts a new anti-corruption law as protests force Zelensky to retreat. Ukraine's parliament approves law restoring independence of the anti-graft watchdogs following a backlash in that case. And Trump is changing his tone on the Gaza humanitarian crisis. So definitely it looks like Trump has broken with the BB over the Gaza famine. And definitely it looks like Gaza hunger presents Trump with a moral test familiar to past presidents. And as more nations say they may recognize Palestine, hostages' families are having reactions to that as well. Britain warns Israel it could recognize Palestinian states as Gaza's starvation spreads. So definitely there's a lot of talk around that as well. And Ukraine arrests an Air Force officer for spying on Western supplied fighter jets. So Ukraine's security service discovered a mole in the Ukrainian Air Force who helped Russia target airfields hosting F-16 and Mirage jets. So a Ukrainian Air Force officer was accused of leaking location of the NATO F-16 jets to Russia. And Lithuanian Prime Minister Gintautas Palakas steps down after an investigation in some things that he had going on following some protests. So definitely that is something that is in the news as well. And Trump tells Russian officials to watch his words, but he bites back instead. So Trump brushes back Russia's Medvedev after war warning, and Trump threatens Russia's failed former president in that sense. And Arab states, like I said yesterday, are calling on Hamas to disarm and relinquish power in an unprecedented move. And Bruce Pearl calls out Obama for creating this mess in Gaza. He's saying you gave billions to Iran and all along those lines. So it looks like he is definitely taking a stance against former President Obama, this coach from the world of college athletics, and all in that way. So definitely there's a lot going on in that space. By the way, Japan recorded its highest temperature ever as the heat wave lingers in that area. So the city breaks the entire country's record with unprecedented temperatures, and we're having hot temperatures here. I think we're going to be in the mid 90s today, but we might get a break in the low 80s here in North Carolina in the starting tomorrow when some rain and a cold front comes through. But then it'll be back to the 90s again at the end of next week. And in ancient gems linked to Buddha are returned to India. Buddhist gem collection returned to India after 127 years, and the ancient Buddha relics sold to India after $13 million auction was postponed. And U.S. and India launched a historic joint mission that could change the way we see Earth. So definitely looks like that is going on as well. So we'll see how this mission goes and what happens in that space. And UN says scores of farmers have been killed in Congo, endangering one of Trump's peace efforts, and all along those lines, at least 40 Christians were killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo as they gathered to pray about 3 or 4 days ago. So definitely there's a lot going on in that space as well. And Australia, like I said yesterday, has widened the social media ban to include YouTube and is scrapping certain exemptions and all along those lines. So we'll be seeing what folks have to say about that. And Trump's terrorists face crucial court tests on the eve of the latest deadline. Trump sees emergencies everywhere. Judges are considering whether to rein him in. And experts say Texas is ignoring the root cause of their deadly July floods, unregulated development. So local leaders to face Texas lawmakers today as questions linger about the deadly July 4th flooding. And Katie Porter gets the edge in California as Kamala Harris passes on the governor's race. So looks like Kamala Harris has decided not to run for governor in 2028 and everything like that. And Nancy Pelosi appears to endorse a candidate for California governor after Kamala Harris bows out. And the majority of ICE arrests in Trump's first 5 months were in certain states, Louisiana being one of them. Apparently, Louisiana built Trump's busiest ICE deportation hub. But a majority of the ICE arrests in Trump's first 5 months took place in border and southern states. So definitely that's what folks are talking about as well. And Springdale superintendent says district has had hired Devil's Den murder suspect for 2025. So man charged over the murders of husband and wife while hiking with their two young daughters in Arkansas. And the teacher was arrested for the Arkansas double murder while getting a haircut. And Mount Donnie confronts his past calls to defund police after an officer's death in New York. He once mocked a crying cop. Now he may run the nation's largest police force. So Zoran Mamdani says past calls to defund the police were made out of frustration. So definitely Mamdani, after visiting the slain officer's family, has defended his stance on police. And New York City mass killings raise new security concerns for corporate America. So the funeral to be held for the New York Police Department officer killed in the Park Avenue shooting and all along those lines. And there are another DC crash, and there's some key takeaways from the DC plane crash hearings. And the NDSP is to probe air traffic controlling training collision avoidance technology in second day of hearings on that DC mid-air collision that took place some time ago and everything like that. So we'll see what happens in that space. Trump says U.S. to impose 15% tariff on South Korean goods. South Korea reaches trade deal with Trump, and definitely the South Korean team has negotiated its trade deal. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And Trump calls GOP's Hawley second-tier senator after bill to ban stock trades and all along those lines. So bill barring stock trading for Congress advances with a Trump carve-out. And GOP Senator Josh Hawley and Democrats vote to advance the congressional stock trading ban. And like I said, Trump blasted Republican Senator Hawley over the stock trading ban, calling him a pawn. And Trump's newborn savings account, a backdoor for privatizing Social Security. So Treasury Secretary says Trump accounts could pave way to privatizing Social Security. Trump's baby savings accounts are just a backdoor to privatizing Social Security, according to an article in The Independent, and to what the Treasury Secretary has said. But lots going on around the world. By the way, a cruise ship sailed to safety amid a tsunami warning, leaving some passengers behind. Kamchatka earthquake is among top 10 strongest ever recorded, and Hawaii breathes a massive sigh of relief after tsunami scare shakes island, and all along those lines. And Democrats' fight or flight dilemma comes to a head in the Senate. Capitol agenda, Democrats are grappling with a Trump resistance dilemma and all in that space. So that's some of the news that is going to be out there, including an F-35 fighter jet crashing in California. Pilot saved after that military jet crashed in Fresno County. Navy confirms F-35 fighter went down near the California base and the pilot safely ejected. And there is talk that Hulk Hogan's daughter will get nothing from his will. So we'll see how this plays out in terms of a famous person's death and family members and all along those lines. And a Colorado dentist gets life without parole in the wife's poisoning murder. So U.S. dentist jailed for murder after poisoning wife's protein shakes. So he was poisoning the protein shakes and poisoning them with cyanide. So that's definitely something that we're seeing as well. And Democrats are bidding to block $675 million Israeli arm, and that bid to block it failed. So record number of Senate Democrats voted to block the weapons deal, but apparently it wasn't enough to overturn what was going on. And Donald Trump had an unprecedented attack on Brazil's judiciary. So definitely, U.S. imposes sanctions on Brazilian High Court judge, and Trump accused of attack on Brazilian democracy after sanctioning Bolsonaro trial judge. So definitely, that's something we're hearing. And also, Trump administration is launching a new private health tracking system with big tech's help. So new tech-focused Maha initiatives will usher in a new area of convenience and improve health incomes and all along those lines. So definitely a lot's going on in that space and around that kind of way. And we're definitely hearing a lot of these stories that people are talking about. I've got John with me, and John can tell me what he's hearing about what's going on in Canada. And apparently there might be some more sanctions going on because Mark Carney wants to recognize the Palestinian state, and Trump doesn't like that. You're on mute. Oh, there you
Yeah, I'm just enjoying my walk. It's much cooler today. Yeah, so I heard about that, so I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah, it is much cooler weather, and that's always a good thing. And all along those lines, I don't know where the usual gang is. They're probably popping late as usual and everything. But yeah, it looks like we might be getting some privatizing of health, and they're even talking about privatizing the Social Security. And I think y'all got some private things as well, and everything like that. It looks like the Texas GOP's new congressional map is targeting Democratic urban districts, and the Texas Republicans are unveiling a redistricting map to expand the GOP foothold by 5 seats in that area and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. We'll bring in Rick, see what Rick's got going on in his neck of the woods, and hopefully he's recovering well and everything like that.
Yeah, I tested negative the last 2 days. So
Oh, good. That is definitely good. So what are you hearing in the news? I did see that damning polls find huge amount of voters believe Trump was involved in Epstein's crime and everything like that.
yeah, I mean, he's been quoted as, I mean, you look at his whole record. He's been accused of sexual harassment and assault by 26 women, found guilty by 2 juries of raping a woman with his fingers. Been caught and said repeatedly on tape that he likes attacking women and seeing them in naked or in their under. I mean, he's got his whole life is a record of this stuff. But if you go back to that Texas thing, California, and our Governor Newsom is threatening to redistrict California to favor Democrats if Texas redistricts to favor Republicans. So we'll see. I see we've lost Mark. I'm going to go to Drudge and see what's happening there until I get more guidance. Drudge is I don't know if Mark has mentioned it. Microsoft is now a $4 trillion company. I don't know. The family of Virginia Giuffre, who is one of the 2 former Epstein girls who committed suicide years after their abuse, they're speaking out against
Speaking
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Speaking of speaking out, I did see Eileen Slotsky. It's a woman that was involved in being a potential Democratic candidate, but she was on Colbert yesterday, the senator, and I'm trying to remember how she pronounces her name, but she was definitely saying the Democrats need to be tougher and to kind of like come up with a plan in order to be strong against Trump and the Republicans and all on those lines. And I'm going to try to find the clip. I might play it tomorrow or even on World Politics, but she was definitely saying that they needed to have a stronger messaging, which we've talked about here on this network and everything like that. But she was definitely going in that direction and saying that there needs to be a stronger push. She was also pushing for there to be aid to Gaza and everything like that. But she was definitely an interesting interview that Colbert had on yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats need to be as loud as the Republicans. Trump's performance in office, he has very little to be proud of. It's been chaos. The only thing he can claim is that he shut down the border. And even that is, well, you just don't talk about that if you're Democrats. But everything else has been, completely shitty.
Are you? I hope your wife is not around, Rick.
No, she's here in another room.
Oh no.
She'll yell at you later.
Yeah, it's okay. It's freaking okay.
I'm teasing.
Y'all have a truce now?
I'm teasing you.
Yeah.
Y'all have a truce now?
No, it's fine. She just doesn't want us to get thrown in prison or in some chain link, Florida,
She doesn't want you going to Alcatraz
No.
down here in Florida?
No. And we want to be able to visit our kid who lives in London without, being stopped when we try to return to the U.S.
That's right. Your kid just got married recently. Is her husband in the same field that she's in, or are they in different fields?
No, he works for the British government. He's trained as they got two kinds of lawyers over there, and he's got a law degree, but he doesn't use it. Except to work for, for years he was working in a department that looks at cities in England that need some economic stimulus, and he would go there and he would work with them to see what they needed. And his job profile changed when the government went from conservative to liberal.
Yeah. What are you thinking about, and this is for both you and John, these universities that are reaching deals with the White House to unfreeze their funding? I saw that Brown University recently made a deal. I think that even here on our campus, because I don't live that far from Duke and everything, that they have made a couple of deals, even though they've been threatened with a
it's all extortion and payoffs.
Yeah, and and definitely they're making threats, because I think they threatened one of the Duke departments for their hiring practices and everything like that. So apparently Trump is sending letters to certain universities if he feels that they are teaching certain things that he doesn't think should be taught, or if he feels that they are going against programs the way that he wants.
So media companies and colleges see no end in sight for Trump's power. The first chance we have to curtail any of his power is in 2026 with the midterms, which are still 15 months away. And that won't completely stop him. He can't be stopped for almost another 3.5 years. So they're making calculations, and they just have decided that it's worth paying off Trump, some of them $200 million, to get him off their backs. Yeah. The same way that you'd pay protection money if you owned a candy store in Queens and mob guys walked in and said, "Nice store you have, too bad if something were to happen to it." And you pay them a few $100 a week protection money so they don't burn down your store.
Yep, it is kind of like the extortionists and everything like that. I've been watching enough reruns of Texas Ranger, the old show, and everything like that with Chuck Norris and his son. And definitely there's a couple of them episodes where they were doing that, was paying off extortion, and a couple of the other crime shows that I've been watching as well. So yeah, it does harken back to those days. I had an interesting question that was asked by a friend and an interesting observation. I'll tell you the observation later, but first I'll ask you the question, which is, what is the end game for Trump? Trump is not exactly a spring chicken himself. I mean, I know there was all the complaints about Biden. So what is the end game for Trump? Because he is in his 80s and all along.
He's 79.
He's 79, about to be 80. So what is the end game? Is he trying to get Byron in office? Is he trying to create a Bush-like
he doesn't have a game. He just does what he does in the moment. He's got no grand strategy except to try to glom as much money as he can and to stay out of prison
No, that's
and to persecute people he doesn't like.
He definitely does a lot of that. He definitely persecutes a lot of people that he doesn't like, and all along those lines. The observation I heard was somebody that knew some of the folks that are in the immigration space and everything. They were wondering if some of the push for getting some of these immigrants isn't also a push for their property, because a lot of the immigrants, particularly a lot of the Latin immigrants, own everything from tiendas to construction companies to a number of other things. So they were speculating.
I don't know how he does that. I mean, the Nazis persecuted the Jews, and that was one of their reasons, because they were basically a crime syndicate, and the Jews in Germany had a lot of money at a time of hyperinflation. And yeah, they stole a ton of stuff from the Jews. I don't see that Trump is trying to steal stuff from immigrants, though other people might sweep in and grab stuff as immigrants are imprisoned. That happened with the Japanese when they were put in internment camps at the beginning of World War II. The Japanese had done very well in the state of California. In the gardening sector, the nurseries, they owned houses, they owned businesses, and they try to appoint people to guard their property as they were, they only had like 48 hours to get their stuff and get carted off to camps. And most of them lost everything.
And speaking of losing everything and all along those lines and everything, apparently Kamala Harris has decided not to run for California governor, but there's this woman that I don't know anything about because I don't live in California. So what can you tell me about Katie Porter, who apparently has got the endorsement from Nancy Pelosi, and why
Katie Porter was awesome as a congressperson. She was the one with the whiteboard where she'd get captains of industry to testify before the Congress, and she'd hold them to account to show they were full of crap often, doing mathematical presentations about that debunked their claims. And a lot of there was a big three-way race for senator, which I think was won by Michael Schiff.
Mm-hmm.
But all three Democratic candidates were good candidates, and she left the House to run. And yeah, I think she'd make a great governor.
What's your speculation on why Kamala decided not to run? Because there's a lot of people.
Well, there's a historical precedent. In 1960,
right,
Nixon lost to Kennedy by a similar margin that Harris lost to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 62, he ran for governor of California, and he lost.
Right.
And it was seen as a major humiliation. And she's not going to take that risk.
Yeah, I'm not going to take that risk. The other thing I've heard people say, and you might have even mentioned it, but I know some of my friends have mentioned it and everything, is that with Governor Cooper running, apparently Governor Cooper has a history of only running when he's going to win. So that's what a friend of mine that's in the political landscape was talking about. So they're feeling that he feels he has a very good chance of winning because he has not lost a race that he has entered, apparently, whether that was for governor or whether it was for a number of other things that he had.
Why would you run if you're going to lose?
Right.
So if you're going to run, you're going to commission some polling to see that at least you have a decent chance that, that right now, say with 15 months to go till the election, you'd want to commission some polls. And if you were down by more than 15 points, say, maybe you reconsider running. But if you're within like 8 points, you think you can make up 8 points in a year.
Yeah, and I think he's actually ahead because, like I said, he was a popular governor and everything like that. One of the news that was coming out of your neck of the woods is apparently, as of earlier today, another 1,000 National Guard troops are leaving Los Angeles. Mayor Karen Bass announced that and everything. So it looks like more people are pulling out of Los Angeles, where I guess they were trying to.
They weren't needed in the first place. They haven't done anything. They've just been sitting around. I mean, maybe when they were first here, they'd line up and face down some protesters. But even there, they weren't needed. The riots, well, they weren't riots to any great extent. As I've been saying, the
They weren't
major
riots.
damage was 5 Waymo driverless cabs were vandalized. 2 of them, I think, were burnt to the ground. Compared to serious riots we had about George Floyd, where 160 police cars were vandalized.
Well, even before George Floyd, y'all had the Rodney King riots and some other riots that were
Yes, I mean, we've
definitely,
had real riots in Los Angeles. But
yeah, like Watts riots and even some other riots that were
yeah, back
much
in what,
worse.
65, or
Yeah,
was
65 or
Watts?
something like that. So these they definitely had some much worse riots and everything
Yeah, but these
along
weren't what happened this summer. Those weren't riots.
those
They
are not
were
riots at all. But speaking of not riots, how safe would you feel? Because apparently being in corporate America is not all that safe because they wanted to go after the NFL and they went after the wrong targets. There was that other, I think it was the banker that was in New York that was shot and killed, and now apparently a city councilman in Virginia was set on fire and everything. And there was even a on Fox, a magazine owner, that described the moments of when this took place and everything. So how safe would you feel as either a politician or a business person in this day and time?
if I were a politician, I would take reasonable security precautions.
Hmm.
But we're a big country, a third of a billion people, and there are some lunatics running around. There's always going to be murder. There's always going to be, well, lately there's going to be what they call stochastic terrorism,
Right.
where propaganda appeals to lunatics, and even if somebody's a 1 in 1,000 level of crazy, crazier than 999 people out of 1,000, there's still a third of a million of people that crazy in America. And if you send out enough propaganda, people are lunatics are going to take action,
Yeah.
and it's going to be all over the news,
Mhm.
and we're going to be scared. But statistically, no, if you're a business person, people are not coming for you.
Right. Not as much as they would the politicians and everything. The other thing that I know people used to be very concerned about, and occasionally there'll be a nightmare like what happened in Chernobyl and what apparently has happened now in Nebraska. But I was just wondering, how concerned should people be about nuclear power plants and biofuel plants and things like that? Because apparently there was a Nebraska biofuel plant that exploded, killed 3 people, including 2 young girls and everything like that. But I do know that they try to say that they do safety precautions at all of these kind of
This
plants.
was a biofuel.
It was a biofuel, yes.
I don't know. I mean, so often, air travel, except lately, has become super, super safe. Like before this year, it was one fatal accident per 6 million flights. And the way air travel became safe was when stuff went wrong, they learned from it.
Right.
And through, when nuclear plants go bad, they learn from, some of our biggest. Chernobyl was ridiculous human error. 3 Mile Island was human error.
Right.
Fukushima was a tsunami. And you learn from all that. And nuclear plants, any new ones put up, should be super safe. And this biofuel, it's a fairly new form of energy, also kind of a bullshit form of energy, because it turns out you spend more energy making biofuel than you get from it. It's another handout to the corn lobby.
Yep.
And it's paying money to people who make corn in a bullshitty way.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. Hey, John, just out of curiosity, which way is Canada building these days and everything? Because I was watching my local news yesterday, and I saw that our entertainment and sports facility is actually where the Canes play, Lenovo and everything, is getting ready to do some major renovations, and then they're getting ready to build upwards. I think like some multiple stories. I want to say like maybe even 30 stories or something like that in one of our suburban areas in Raleigh and everything like that. And I think even in the sports complex, they're supposed to be having like a complex next to it that'll be like a sports village or something like that. So I was just wondering, are y'all building across or are y'all building up in terms of like the way you're seeing development in Canada in your neck of the woods?
So I'm not sure what part of Canada you're talking about. Canada, as you know, is a huge.
Your province. That's what I said. I said where you live
In Ontario?
Uh-huh.
Well, they finished renovating the Sky Dome where the Blue Jays play, but that was like last year.
Okay.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
LA is doing a ton, and I think probably big cities across America are doing a ton in the retail/residential area where bottom floors, you got retail, restaurants, sports arena, and then you build a nice tower, and it's exciting. We go to, occasionally, my wife and I go downtown because it's a pain, and when you park downtown in LA, the clock is always ticking, like, $8 an hour, which we can afford it, but I don't like having to watch the clock. But if you live down there, and if you're young, if you're in your 20s or 30s, and you got a decent starter level job, to live in these towers, to walk around downtown, it's exciting. The architecture is exciting. The opportunity to meet somebody in a bar or on the street and go home with them, because that's
what we got in Durham. I mean, it's a much smaller city than Los Angeles, but there are a couple of big towers. Some of those towers are in the $1 million range. So I know I won't be affording them anytime soon. Anything like that.
Those are efficient too, where you don't have. It's not the suburban model where you drive every place.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I remember, y'all don't know this, but in addition to being a journalist, there was a time that I had even contemplated being an architect, and I remember drawing like some buildings as a school kid and everything. They're going upwards, kind of like the skyscraper route and everything. So it was almost like the city would be upwards and everything, and that's what it seems like a lot of things are doing, because that would be basically what was going on in North Hills, which is a part of Raleigh, which is our state capital here in North Carolina and everything. But then it seems like around the malls, like the big super malls, there was a lot of building the parallel, not building side to side versus building up. So that's why I was asking, what are you observing? Are more people building up, or are they building like these big type village type deals? Because it seems like a lot of these village type deals are coming up as well.
The cultural life of big cities is shifting away from the model where you drive every place.
Right.
And for instance, street crime is down 50% since the 1990s. And one reason is because people aren't out people are staying in, they're doing stuff by, virtually, and, part of the less driving deal. I mean, right now, LA still needs a ton of parking spaces because people in LA still drive every place. But 20 years from now, the number of cars per capita will probably be down by 25% as we do more and more of our business from our homes. And you might as well build vertically and make exciting living areas with a bunch of people in it.
And that's what it looked like. More of this vertical kind of building was going versus horizontal. That's the way.
And we need that because we've lost interpersonal skills. There's this thing called the Gen Z blank stare, where if you go up to younger people and ask them a question or say something, they just stare back at you because they're not really good at verbal communication. And these new vertical developments, retail, residential, it gives people a chance to interact face to face again, like in Manhattan. Manhattan is a face to face city, which makes it exciting, and turning other cities into face to face cities is good for people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of people are having a hard time coping with interpersonal skills, particularly after we lost some of those skills during the pandemic and everything along those lines in that space. Hey, Sasha, I know you had the show yesterday, but it looks like there was another attack on your hometown of Kiev, and well, your hometown was Odessa, but I know you have connections to Kiev as well. But it looks like there was another attack there, and it also looks like there was a mole found within the Ukrainian Air Force who had been given information to the Russians and everything like that. So I just wondering, what else have you heard about these particular incidences and how the war is going in your mind and everything like that?
Well, the war, it depends for whom. For some people, like for Chinese, for Russians, the war is doing quite well. The Ukrainians' cities are being bombarded, and civilians, uh, women, children are being killed. And it's obviously it's a genocide. But unlike Palestinians who are supported all over the world, nobody cares about Ukrainians being killed. Wonderful situation, okay, but that's realities where we are living now.
Well, you say that and everything. I heard it interesting, and Jacoby may find this interesting as well. I think I sent it to him, but there was a gentleman that made the parallel between Nazi Germany and Africa and everything like that, because they said that I think it was 2 million or something like that Jews and others were killed, but it was like 20 million Africans that were killed by Leopold, the leader of that country, and the leader, I think of that would have been Belgium, if I remember correctly. But nobody even made any comments about that at that time. And that was a Holocaust as well, this particular person on social media, but nobody paid as much attention because it was black and brown people the way that Jacoby talks about sometimes. What did you say, Rick?
I haven't said anything.
Okay.
But I want to go back to the Gen Z blank stare for a second because I see it in action. I go to several gyms, and there used to be gym etiquette, where people would get off machines. Now everybody sits on their machines and just plays with their phones, and everybody else just kind of tolerates it. But since I'm a cranky old guy, I'll give them a couple minutes, and I'll go up to them and go, "Excuse me, how many more sets do you have?" And the new younger people act like are startled and act like you're invading their space. I've had some very unpleasant interactions, and some of them have a hard time responding with words, and just like eventually you'll say, or like the last time I did it, somebody just looked at me like, "Oh my God," and held up two fingers indicating they have two more sets. And yeah, there's a decay in face-to-face communication.
Yeah, there's definitely been a decay in that and everything. Jacoby, you work with a lot of young people. How have you been observing this decay, and how have you been getting around it? Because there is a decay sometimes in terms of the way that young people communicate. I even see that sometimes when I'm traveling around on mass transit, because sometimes they give you a hard time, and sometimes they are totally ignoring you, but sometimes they'll also be confrontational. So I'm just wondering your take on how the young people are treating you.
Just want to point out, because we sound like a bunch of old fogies telling young kids to get off our lawn.
Yeah, I'm definitely a cranky old guy, and I got white hair just poking out all over the place. So yeah, it makes sense that somebody in their 20s would be terrified of this cranky old a-hole, but just not.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of different communications. I don't know if it's decay more so than people find comfort in their cell phones or in their just hearing where you are in the Walkman or your Discman in your ear. Then it became the iPod. Now it's your cell phone that's doing the same thing. So I don't know if it's a decay more so that people are just trapped in their bubbles, and we just need to learn a better way of communicating when people are in their bubbles.
It's funny that you use the example of the Walkman, because when I was in college in the 80s, I had a friend, a Polish friend, if I remember his background correctly and everything, but he was definitely a socialist. He might have even been borderline communist and everything, but he used to call the Walkman an example of bourgeois subjectivity. So that was what his idea of what a Walkman was, because everybody at that time, like you said, had their Walkman on and was not paying attention to anything else, and would sometimes even bump into people because they were totally absorbed in whatever music they were listening to. So that was his phrase and nickname that has resonated with me these several decades since
Well,
then.
yeah, I mean, yeah, the Walkman was the first widespread individual entertainment system
Right.
that let you build a bubble.
Right, and that's basically what he's saying. People were building their own little private bubbles and everything, and now you've got the cell phone as another form of that bubble, and all along those lines. So yeah, it was just interesting that term was out there. Yeah, that was the 80s, 80 to 84, and I think he came up with that term like in 82.
I mean, before the Walkman was the transistor radio, which was the
Right.
first truly portable radio in the 60s. But those actually invited people to come and bug you, because if you were listening to the radio, you're probably listening to sports. And
Yeah.
so if you might have an earphone, but even so, people would come up to you and say, well, what's the score?
Yeah. It would definitely do
And,
that.
and since I'm a lazy Canadian, I don't go to the gym, so I don't have a lot of interaction with the younger people other than my kids. So lucky for me.
Don't have to deal with the lazy folks and everything. Hey, it looks like and I know Musk was a big part of the Doge movement, but apparently Chinese researchers are suggesting lasers and sabotage to counter Musk Starlink. So it looks like China may be trying to get involved, and there are some people that are saying that America needs to prepare for Chinese space stalking. So we're about to get ready to have a battle of satellites with the Chinese, and if so, what kind of impact will that have?
We've been at war with China for decades, cyber war, where U.S. and China hack each other thousands of times a day. We're looking for vulnerabilities in computer systems, data systems, and acting on some of them, and just keeping some of them tabs on others where if hostilities did break out, our computer systems would be taken down.
Yeah. How much confidence
I
do
would
y'all?
say, I was just going to say, I would say if we had a competent president and a competent administration, just like what happened with Sputnik, this would actually push us into a new technological age, because we would invest more in technology. We would add more into research and development, because that's actually what led to the space race. Was when Sputnik went up, then the U.S. decided to pump a ton of money to try and catch up with Russia and lead the world in that technology way. But we don't have a competent administration right now, so we're going to be stuck behind, and others are going to lead the space race.
So let's look at. Hold on, you're right about when Sputnik happened. Eisenhower was president, a revered World War II general, a quiet, competent president, respected by both parties. And then he left office, and it was JFK, a young, charismatic president that excited the nation. And then he had the bad luck to be assassinated, and America wanted to keep on fulfilling his dreams by going to the moon, which was another technological push. So we had favorable political conditions. Now we've had a string of old assholes who nobody likes, and half of the assholes are trying to dismantle America's educational system.
Well, speaking of the education system, we've been joined by Steve and everything like that. So, Steve, how are you doing and everything like that? And I know that one of our education governors was none other than Terry Sanford, but a lot of people who said Roy Cooper was an education type governor as well, but now he wants to be senator. So I was just wondering your take on Roy Cooper as his Senate race, since you got your own campaign going, but I'm sure you're in touch with some of the statewide candidates also.
Well, I took a little a little power nap, so I was late. I had to resting up my body. It was really good to see Cooper get in. I feel bad for Wiley Nickel, but I think it's Cooper's race to win. Looks like it's going to be a good year for Democrats. It'll be about an $800 million race when it's all said and done. I think it's going to affect a lot of other local races because money is going to be drained out. But I think this is going to be an important race for control of the U.S. Senate, and it'll be a very interesting race. I think that the Democrats really have to get our message in terms of just their focus on the economy, the focus on what they can do better. But we are seeing a lot of energy out there. So, a lot of protests every weekend, Democratic events selling out, Unity Dinner where Cooper made the first announcement in North Carolina that he would be running for the U.S. Senate was quite exciting. So we'll see where this goes. It's going to be a heck of a year. Vice President Harris, you probably already talked about it, didn't just announce she's not running for governor. So we don't know what she's going to do, whether she's going to run again for president or not. But, I think this is the first litmus test, and then we'll see. And normally these races don't go so well for the party in White House. So we're predicting a better year for Democrats, but we'll see.
Hey, Steve, just really quick, because we were talking before you got here just about technology and some of the other things, including the phone and all along those lines. But I was just wondering, because you are in that technology space, how comfortable do you feel about modern day technology? Because I just saw that another spacecraft, it wasn't one of ours, it was actually one of Australia's, fell out of the sky because it didn't quite make it to take off and everything like that. So some of these rockets that are supposed to be other countries getting into the space race are not having that much success. I think there was one from, might have been India, that also fell. And then of course we know several of the Starlink aircraft have failed as well. So how confident as a technology person are you feeling about our modern day technology?
Well, I feel confident in terms of technology, in terms of acceleration, AI and smartphone technology and sensors and the Internet of Things. Security is always an issue, but we are seeing more malfunctions than not on, for example, aircraft, spacecraft. So I don't know whether it's maintenance, whether it's, are we covering them more so there's not as many mistakes happening, but it seems like it. But it does seem that there's a lot of mechanical errors and functions on planes. I think for the U.S. air fleet, compared to other countries, even like India, we're not upgrading our aircraft as often. The aircraft are older, don't seem to be as maintained as well. Lack of, just rolling out new types of aircraft and planes. And I don't know whether this, parlays into spacecraft, but I can't speak to Australia in terms of their spacecraft. But we need good engineers. We need people that do quality controls and making sure that all engines are ready for a go. So we'll have to see.
So that nobody's talking about it yet, but that Air India disaster,
yes,
was mass murder suicide. If the pilot turned off the engines on takeoff, and the plane pilot or co-pilot, somebody flipped off the switches and just turned the engines off, and the plane dropped to the ground. So, and that's happened a few times. That's hard to fight, except that you got to keep tabs on your pilots to make sure they're not mentally ill. But in the U.S., we're seeing a lot of turbulence, and we're going to see that around the world, particularly in the U.S. because of our geography, because of, climate change makes the air is hotter. The more heat it has, the more energy it has to form turbulent air. So my recommendation is don't fly at the height of summer, where the air is super fluffy and volatile, particularly into high altitude cities like Denver or hot ass cities like Houston or Phoenix. Fly in the autumn or the spring or winter when the air is heavier and less likely to toss you around.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, Cape Canaveral isn't that far from Tampa and all along those lines, and it looked like Tampa just hit a record 100-degree Fahrenheit. So yeah, a lot of these cities are getting crazy temperatures. As I know, Steve knows, I think we hit 100 or feel like a temperature of 110 or 107 a couple of days ago, and all along those lines. We're getting ready to hit a cool down spell at least for a day or two.
And this morning, I've been running in the morning, to get my exercise, but today it was nice to have no sunlight for about an hour and 10 minutes. And boy, it felt different than the last 20 minutes where you're just bearing down in the heat. And during the day, it's just unbearable. Today, it's a little bit better, but it's been so hot. And it's important to stay hydrated wherever we are. And, the weather changes. Real quickly, before I leave, I just want to make sure we talked about other things. Let me go through my notes here. I get the so Trump, real quickly, you probably talked about it, but his trade deal with South Korea, the country's going to face tariffs of 15%, and he already raised tariffs on Brazil from 10 to 50%. So it looks like the trade wars continue on, and not only on steel, but copper, pipes, cables. This is all hitting hard. So we'll see. And the Federal Reserve held its benchmark interest rate steady at 4.25 to 4.5%. And then we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Russia and Putin. So those are the standard things. And, we just have to wait and see. It's hard to believe a year ago we were talking about the presidential election, and here we are.
He's already in his office. He's already been in there about 5 months and everything like that. So yeah, we're seeing where it's going. I was actually surprised, and I think I mentioned it on a past newscast, that the president of Bank of America is actually speculating that we might be hitting a boom economy, which was a stronger report than I was expecting from one of our corporate leaders and everything like that. But that's what they're saying, is that it might be more improvement in the economy than we are expecting.
Business likes paralyzed, incompetent government, because that means nobody's enforcing regulations and business can run wild. So yeah, when you look at business is also like a president in trouble. The economy boomed under Clinton when Clinton was in trouble because of having an affair with Lewinsky. It boomed, I believe, under the last years of Reagan, when Reagan was in trouble for Iran-Contra. They love that stuff because nobody's watching business when that stuff's going on.
Yeah, they're not paying attention to the business sandals and all of that and everything like that. Speaking of which, Sasha, I got a question for you, because one of the sports athletes that got in trouble, there were two sports athletes that got in trouble recently. Shannon Sharp got in trouble for alleged, I think there were some rape charges. I can't remember if he was acquitted or those charges were dismissed. And he was fired, but then he was fired from ESPN. But Gilbert Arenas, who used to be a basketball player for, I forgot which team he played for, and all along those lines, but he was involved in a high-stake poker match and all along those lines. And I didn't know that this would be something that would draw the attention of the international community. But I know that you've been involved in poker as well as, and I know Shaquille, when he's been here, has been involved in the game and everything. So how much do you have to have on stake at a high risk poker game in order to get the attention? Because apparently there was like some intelligence agents that were involved in this game as well, in order to get the attention of the federal government, because apparently they've indicted like 6 people, including this basketball player.
Okay, number one, I'm not involved in poker. Number two, all this is a noise to get your attention, eyeballs, and there's no substance in it. There is nothing of interest whatsoever. I would like to mention, Steve, what you talk about Trump's tariffs. There is a deadline tomorrow, August 1st, and from Canada, there were no phone calls, no action like visiting Mar-a-Lago or White House and beg and ask for forgiveness and for this and for that. And please, there is nothing. Zero, because Canada is already preparing completely readjust its trade deals around the world, and these deals simply will cut out United States. There's almost stop of any traveling between United States and Canada. When I was flying to Europe, in our main terminal, the first terminal, there is one section which is dealing only with the travel to United States. It's separate. Wow. Zero people, zero flight attendants, zero checkout people, nothing. It was like a completely dead place with no people.
Yeah,
this is what happened.
But Sasha, according to some of the folks in the MAGA world, and I'm saying that that's just what I've been reading, they're claiming that part of the reason that the trade between Trump and Canada is not taking place is because of Carney's stance on Palestine. Because apparently Carney is saying that he wants to recognize the Palestinian state. Now you're probably saying that that's just an
Mark, please don't repeat this stupidity. It's nothing but a joke, because they're talking about possible trade between Canada and the United States for months, and the Palestinian issue came during the weekend. And in fact, all what Carney is doing is he follows Macron and Starmer lead, because they are about to recognize Palestine. I don't understand the concept. What means recognize Palestine? What do you recognize? There is no country, there is no government, there is nothing. So what are you going to recognize anyway? So I'm not supporting Carney's position on recognition of Palestinian at all. But on the trade issues, yes, I do support what he's doing.
You're on mute, Rick. You're on mute, Rick. Rick, you're on mute.
So is there any chance that Gaza can get it together to appoint even like somebody to go to the UN to represent the country if it's going to be recognized?
It's a business of UN. UN want to have Palestinian representatives. Who can prevent it? I mean, so you get to the plane from Gaza. Okay, you will not go through Jerusalem airport, but you can go to, say, Egypt. Land a plane, go to US, to New York, and be there for 2 days, 5 days, whatever time you need, and fly back through Egypt back to Gaza. And then what's been accomplished? Really nothing. Well, what has to happen is one very simple thing. Let's get serious about it. Palestine has to completely capitulate to Israel. They lost the war, capitulate. If you capitulate, then there is obviously hope for a rebuilding of the state, a modernization, much different foreign policy of Gaza. Maybe Gaza will be able to have their own independent country. Maybe they will be autonomous territory of Israel. I don't know. I'm not sure about all that issues. But at least one thing is clear. You have to capitulate. Now, if you don't capitulate, then Israel will slowly starve you, kill you, and that's not what anybody wants to happen. So hopefully it will not happen unless you capitulate, and then everything will go back to normal.
That is oftentimes the military standpoint and everything like that, but not everybody believes in that philosophy. But we can get into that on another show, including world politics and all along those lines, because it's time to wrap up this particular show and everything like that. But definitely different people have different views on what can go on. And I can even bring some people that are of Palestinian descent, and I may do that in later shows, and we can have conversation with them as to what they want. But it was interesting that the Arab League did condemn Hamas, and looks like they're trying to find other leadership. But right now we're going to get ready to get on out of here. We've got, I think, the VC show coming up at 1 o'clock and everything like that, and some other shows coming up as well. And of course, we'll be back with World Politics at 5 o'clock. And also Coco talking about music and possibly Morocco, which is also in that Arab area as well, since she's got some friends in that area. But we'll see if that's part of her conversation points or not. But right now it's time to get on out of here, and we'll catch everybody on this panel at 5 o'clock, and maybe even Sharif and Nick and some others as well. So right now, time to get on out of here.
Thank you.
No problem.